We had to change the plan last minute. Like about an hour back, there was a lot of snow. Right now, we don't see a lot of any snow, but we made a call because we don't know how the weather is going to be. We thought it is better to be safe than sorry later. We made a call to not have the in-person session. How is everyone doing?
Good, Prabhuji.
Yes. Okay, so we will move on to chapter 2 today. Bhagavad Gita chapter 2 primarily focuses on the topic of identity because, in a way, in the first chapter, there was kind of an emotional crisis for Arjuna, which was not resolved at the bodily identity level. He was basically tormented between the role of a warrior and role of the protector of dynasty, right? Or Kshatriya dharma and Kula dharma. Kshatriya dharma is where he being a warrior, he should be protecting the citizens, giving them the best, you know, and so he should fight and re-establish dharma. On the other hand, he being the dynastic leader, he should also protect Kula dharma, which means which includes the opponents also. So he was kind of in a dilemma situation, and so he is unable to make it his mind on what is the right thing. So in our life, we all play various roles, which we identify ourselves with, correct? Like, for example, I may, I can identify with I'm an Indian, or I am a male, or I am, so and so professional, right? In this way, in our life, so we play various roles, it could be based on gender, could be based on age, country, country in which I belong, right? Or could be based on our interest, right? Um, so in this way, we identify with so many roles. It could be based on, like for example, a father or mother kind of a role, right? So these are various roles we play in our life, right? Um, Interestingly, of course, these change, these evolve. For example, some of you are bachelors before, you're not earning money. Now you are earning money. For example, you got a job and you're getting paid. So your role sometimes evolves, right? And many times, these roles have two different facets. One is, how do I see myself, right? Could be very different from how others see ourselves, see us, right? We may be focused on certain thing in our identity, but others may look at us very differently. Any examples of this? Anybody can remember, or anybody want to say anything about identity? We can do some thought exercise. So, because end of the session, we want to clearly understand the idea of identity very well. You know, for example, because we interact primarily in the spiritual session, we all see each other as aspiring spiritualists. That is the only identity. But when I come home and I stay at home, mostly my identity as a guardian of the home or parent, or could be very different. So you may see me one way, but I may be, I may not be focused on that area, right? So it need not be the same, you see. So identity, it could be very different based on the perception of individuals, right? And in our own life, for example, when we go to India, or coming from a foreign country, many people see us differently. We may not be completely conscious or aware of, like, for example, if somebody knows, and they may act accordingly, based on the identity that they feel that you are. For example, you go to India, and you're in the airport. Somebody understands that you are coming from a different country. They may try to charge you more, right? Because these are foreigners. They came from a foreign country. They may have more money. So people consider, or maybe they can see us differently, right? And within ourselves, also, sometimes if somebody is handicapped, right, we may see them as, somebody needing support and all, but internally they may be not focused on that aspect of their life. Sometimes we look at a person and make up our mind, oh, this person needs it, oh, this person is in such a bad state, but they may not be really focused on that aspect. They may be, at a level of their thinking, and they may not be at all focused on their crippled state of body, correct? So in this way, identity is a very individual, and it keeps varying, and there are so many roles we play in our life. It keeps always changing. And why we do, some of these identifications, why we do, is because it gives kind of security, right? Like, um, I identify myself being part of a society, right? That kind of aligns me with my interests. And for example, if it is taken away, how do I know what is the identity that I am very much attached to? For example, you are very much attached to work, right? Or your profession, right? Then when that is taken away from you, then you are very strongly attached, you see. So there are many roles we play in our life, and some of these roles we strongly attach. And how do we know what are the roles we strongly identify with? Strong identification with certain roles happens when you are deprived of it. You will know you're not feeling the same, right? So in this case, for Arjuna, he is a fighter, but he had a sudden emotional breakdown by looking at his relatives on the opposite side. And now he's not behaving like a warrior anymore, because uh, he did not feel any inclination to fight anymore. So that kind of changed his perception completely. Right? He's not able to identify um, as a warrior for the time being, at least because of the emotional crisis he was in. Right. So that emotional crisis led him to ethical. So emotional crisis. This is so we heard verses where Arjuna was feeling, you know, his body is trembling, his hairs are standing on the end. There is a lot of anxiety symptoms in the body of Arjuna, right? So he was feeling emotional crisis or pain, right? And that led to Arjuna going through a ethical dilemma. He was unable to decide what is the right course of action. So all of this is because he was identifying himself as a Kshatriya first, right? So Arjuna, he identified himself as a Kshatriya first. But when he came down to the battlefield, he identified himself as the protector of dynasty, right? So this is Kshatriya Dharma, this is Kula Dharma. Both are, you know, both are important roles for Arjuna. Being a responsible person, when he saw this kind of a situation where he was playing two different roles, right? He was unable to make up his mind on what is the right course of action for him. So that led to emotional crisis, which led to dilemma, ethical dilemma. And he was, so these are situations we also sometimes, not sometimes, many times, we all go through this. Uh, what is emotional crisis? Generally, it comes when people are subjected to either um, adversity or atrocity. What is adversity? Anybody understands what is the difference between adversity and atrocity? So this is when we all go through emotional crisis. Adversity is negative situations in life, right? Could be suddenly there was a fire in California, all the homes are getting burnt. The place that you are living is just burnt in fire. But adversity is a condition like an earthquake or a wildfires, right? Or wildfires. So these are more or less like natural, which are given to us, and we have, no control on how it is imposed on us. It just comes upon us, and we have to accept it, right? On the other side, atrocity is when willingly somebody commits an offense on you. Like for example, um, somebody in a drunkard state runs over your car, or willfully somebody damages, or sometimes consciously, unconsciously, somebody is, both are coming to us. Atrocity is also coming to us. This is more natural, this is more people centric. So in this way, one may go through a lot of pain. This generally causes emotional crisis to individuals. On the other hand, the third kind of a, so these are the ways in which problems come in our life. Whenever there is a problem, it will be either, mostly it will fall in the adversity, atrocity, or agony, right? Agony means, in this case, you are making the call, and you don't know what is the best thing. For example, we all know at the time of COVID, medical doctors had to, there are so many patients, they have to make a call whom they have to protect. For example, there is one oxygen cylinder, there is a 25-year-old person, and there is a 40-year-old person. Whom do they give the oxygen? They have to make a call. Many times when life throws in very tough situations, even at a simple level, if you are a leader, sometimes you may have to fire your employees, right? Or maybe you have to give rewards to employees. You may want rewards to be given equally to different people, but it may not. So you may have the choice, but you are very sure, you're not satisfied with your decision, or you're not confident whether what you're doing is going to be the right thing, right? So agony is when you have to make a call and you don't know what is the best course. For example, you have twins and you want to send them to a great college, but your finances permit only to send one. It's a situation, real life situation. We all have to go through, these kind of uh, conditions where um, we have to make a call. What is the best thing at this time, right? So in which category is Arjuna belonging in this particular situation? Is it adversity or atrocity or agony? Anybody want to answer?
Agony?
Yes, agony, because he's unable to make up his mind on whether he should be, you know he should be fighting or not fighting, based on either he's seeing himself as a protector of Kula Dharma, or follower of Kshatriya Dharma. Correct. This is how problems come in our life, right? It's primarily based on the role one is playing in life, what role one is playing, right? So, or in other words, role also means identity, right? How do you identify? If you identify only with your material body, that is when all these come, because you're so much engrossed in identifying yourself in certain role. For example, there are people that work very hard because they see themselves as they're. So if it's like, if you are this circle, you play various roles, but there are roles that you identify strongly, and uh, like I said before, there are certain roles that you identify strongly. Somebody identifies himself as a professional, then accordingly the actions follow, right? What actions? He would be workaholic, working late hours, right? So what we identify more or less defines our identity, right? So like that. So why we are discussing all of this, we are just trying to make ourselves think where my identities are. You all can think, go back to your home and think about what are the various roles I play, and what are those things that, if taken away from me, I feel a lot of emotional crisis, right? So that shows exactly where our identities are stuck, or identities are played out. Yeah. So we we all have these functional identities, like I said, right? It could be based on various things like gender, nationality, profession, and male, female, or whatever. So there are several roles we all have. There are levels of identity. So this is physical, and beyond this physical, we also have a fundamental identity. What is that fundamental identity? As a spirit soul, spiritual being. So this is at the physical level. This is at the spiritual level. Now, as long as our identities are strongly, adhered at this level, at the physical level, right? There could be small, big, but if our primary focus is on the physical level, we all go through the three sets of problems we discussed just now, right? It could be based on adversity, atrocity, or agony. These are the when things come upon us, adversity or atrocity, we are pained because we identify strongly with those rules. Or when we have to make a choice, it becomes very difficult at that level of existence. Yeah. and how the spiritual being, the soul, at different times, when I'm at the office, so it will be like a focus, right? The focus is on the professional identity. And when I'm at home, I may be acting as a parent, right? That becomes the focus. So in this way, the soul, I am, this is the spiritual part, right? I am a father. So this is the role, in the physical world I play, right? So this is how our identity is, right? So we are different from our roles, so that is what we need to really understand, that we have two sides to our life. One is the physical side, and the other is the spiritual side. Yeah. So this is, you can also call it as a functional identity, based on our function, and this is fundamental identity. We all have fundamental identity and functional identity. When we are living in this world only based on functional identity, what are the problems we get into, right? So there are three levels of problems that we get into when we are only living at the functional identity. Functional identity is limiting. I am not just this much, right? I am not just a professional, my identity also exists as a parent, right? um, so it is limiting. It cannot fully uh, encompass your all the roles. Every role is independent, and you play only certain roles at any time, as an individual role at any time. So it's limiting, and it also gives a sense of insecurity. For example, if you are a software professional, right? There will be time when you will lose your position as a software professional. At certain age, you will be going out of it. So whatever you have is not going to be permanent. You cannot identify with that particular profession forever. That particular role forever. Most of the identities that we have, they come in and go out at some point. So it kind of gives us a sense of insecurity. For example, lot of athletes, or for example, cricket players, they get the world's, entire world fame at the prime age, like in their 20s and 30s. But before they become too old, they also have to get out of the profession they're in. Like, for example, most of the cricketers retire, in their mid 30s, like 35, 40. And for them, the sense of identity gets lost. Lot of these players, not just cricket, but if they have a good strong purpose right after that profession is done, like some of them join as commentators, or coaches for teams. If they continue on that path, that is good, because they still have that sense of identity. But it's not possible for everyone. A lot of these people actually go through a lot of emotional crisis and breakdowns. They eventually uh, go and become addicts. They, because the that role is so prominent in their life all through their youth, it becomes very difficult. So this functional identity can lead to insecurity, right? And it can also lead to torment. What happened with Arjuna? So he was tormented between his Kshatriya Dharma and Kula Dharma, right? It can lead to torment, right? Dilemmas. What am I supposed to do? What is the right thing? So these are the limitations of only identifying ourselves at the functional identity, right? And so this leads to conflicts. Yeah. Any questions so far? It's been like a lot of theory so far on fundamental identity or functional identity that we are discussing here.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, can you just repeat that last part which you mentioned torment leads to something? I missed it. Sorry.
Yeah, I also missed it.
No, I said, this is another problem with functional identity alone. Like it can cause torment because torment means you're clear in your mind what is the right thing. Pain, torment means pain. Because, sometimes it leads to ethical dilemmas like Arjuna is in right now. Correct? Arjuna was in an ethical dilemma. What is the right thing to do? It is not clear. So sometimes, these functional identities that we live with in this world, various roles we play, they have these three problems. What is it? These identities are temporary and so cause insecurity. These identities limit us because they're only so much. They cannot fully define us. We are not much beyond that, right? And then they also lead to torment or pain in our life because in many times our roles conflict with each other. Our role for example, you are in the office, you have a child who is in the school, and you are working on a very, very important project, and the leadership is waiting for you to be there in the office and deliver the work. At the same time, call comes from from the school of your child, and the teacher says you must come right now and pick up your child. She is in a very tough situation. What do you do at the time? One may say, okay, I will my role as a father is more important. I will go and take care of my child. Right? He is in a dilemma, and if he does that, he may lose his job or he may lose his project. You know, it could be worse. So he had to make a call though. On the other hand, if suppose he was okay, I'm going to stick to my job. This is what is putting food on the table, and I'll have my family member, somebody else will take care of the child. Even though it is urgent, I have to make sure I be here to save my job, right? So in this case, what is the right thing to do? We cannot say because it depends on individual. In both are right, you can say, right? We can leave it to the individual, but it depends on more or less on what one identifies strongly with, as a father or as a professional, right? So in this way, many times these functional identities can lead us to torment. We don't know what is the right thing to do, right? If we only live at that level, so these problems exist, right? We all understand there are inequalities in this world, right? But there is a sense of need for equality in our heart. We all feel like to be treated equally. This we feel like a fundamental need of our existence. But unfortunately, at the biological level or psychological level, no two people are equal, right? Nothing is equal actually. So this sense actually comes from our fundamental identity. because at the spiritual level, we are all equal, right? So why am I talking about this? Anybody got a hint on why we are discussing this? Yeah. So there is basically, there are two sides to us. There is physical bodily level, and there is spiritual side, spiritual or the soul level, right? So equality, the desire for equality comes from this side of us, right? At the physical level, no two people are equal, whether it is height, weight, or income, or position, family. No two people are equal, but there is this urge to be equal, right? All of us feel the urge to be treated equally, um, or dealt equally. So that urge is coming from actually our spiritual side of us, right? So this is nothing to do with the physical side of us, right? Physical roles that we play. Yeah. So we are like, we're all spiritual soul, and we all have this consciousness or awareness that consciousness is also called in Sanskrit Chaitana, that gives us various identities in the physical world, right? So it's like if soul is like in your mobile, there is a light, right? You can switch on the light. It's like the source of the light, and then there is light that is flowing out of the light, right? So that is the consciousness part of the light, right? So when the jiva in the world tries to experience this world, it basically plays various roles in the physical world, right? So the soul gives the sense of I-ness in this world, so identity, and the this one, the sense of awareness, this gives the sense of my role in this world. So who am I? You feel based on where your consciousness is focused at any point in time, right? So the identity comes from the soul, but its expression in this world through our consciousness based on where our focus is in our life. So that plays various roles, right? So that gives us the roles in this world, right? So the fundamental identity gives um, the the worldly identity, or the physical identities that exist for us in various roles, right? So that is coming from our the soul. Yeah. Yeah. So if we live only at this row, the physical role level, we are constricted. So all the roles that we have, let me put it this way. So all the roles that we play in this world are coming from two fundamental areas. One is biological, second is psychological. What are the roles, for example, based on just physical body? what are the various roles we get? Anyone want to say a few biological roles we all play in our life?
Son, daughter,
Yeah.
parents, family relationships.
Parent, families, yeah. So they're all based on our physical body, right? What are the various psychological roles we play? For example, a profession, that's more or less like psychological. I identify myself as a software professional, right? It's psychological, because there is nothing physical, it's your mental role that you play. For example, sometimes at a higher level, people at, say, a vice president, they may feel proud at the higher level for what they're doing. So where is it coming from? It is at the psychological level. It's not a physical thing. There is no gross thing there. But we identify ourselves at the psychological level, right? So, so both these identities are fragile because neither of them are permanent, right? They're temporary, and over time it may evolve or change, or we lose it, right? So, so all of this is fragile. Only spiritual identity is something that will be permanent, right? So you are a father. I am. So the I am comes from here, and the role comes from here, right? So the various roles we play in this world comes from the fragile biological and psychological roles that we play in this world. The permanent spiritual role that we are, the I am, is the one that is experiencing various roles in this world, right? So, and these roles keep changing. If we, focus only on this, what happens when the role changes? We go through crisis, or when the role conflicts, like in case of Arjuna, there is a crisis, right? So, always step back and think about, understand that I am beyond all of this, right? When we do that, then we are not so much entangled in the at the physical identity level, right? And so we don't experience the same amount of emotional torment, right? So our in this world, our sense of identity, so this is the most core lesson we are learning, right? So our sense of identity is, if it is only at the functional level, so this is the pendulum, or only at fundamental level or the soul level. If suppose somebody is only identifying functional, what are the problems we get? We already discussed the word lit, right? What is L for? Anybody remembers? We discussed this.
Limited.
Yeah, it's limited. What is I for?
Insecurity.
T for? Torment, right? So if we only identify ourselves in our role in this world at functional level, then it will lead to this. So this is the reason we don't want to limit ourselves just to identify in this world at our functional level, right? This will lead to unnecessary emotional breakdowns or agony, or because of these limitations. And on the other hand, if you only identify yourself at a fundamental level as a soul and nothing else, what happens? Can you live practically in this world? If you're going to your country and they ask for your passport at the airport, you say, I'm a soul, I'm not this body. Yeah, it doesn't work. Only living at the fundamental level is not practical, and it's more or less very theoretical idea, right? It's going to lead us to impracticality and irresponsibility. So somebody says, hey, I'm not this body, I'm a soul. If I'm a soul and spiritual in nature, why should I work? Right? So that leads to irresponsibility. Now, how do you work or engage in this work? Right? We understand very well that we have a functional identity, and we also have a spiritual core, the soul within us, right? So as a spiritual soul, we understand our role in this world as a spiritual core, and not just work, we're not working in this world without this understanding, right? So as a spirit soul, understanding your various roles and engaging ourselves in a way to realize ourselves, right? Play various roles. In this world. But how do you play? With the understanding that you are a soul fundamentally, right? So with that understanding, if you play various roles in this world, that is empowering, right? Empowering in the sense, how much torment you go through, how much, you may lose your job, or you may lose your dear profession, whatever, or you may lose your loved ones. But understand, you are, those are all various roles which are meant to be temporary. And your spiritual core itself is far beyond all of that. And your original connection, in later chapters we'll understand, is with, this is our true connection or real, real role as, to the Supreme Lord, right? Or God. We don't cover that fully in this, in more detail in here in this chapter, but later on we'll discuss this. So when your tie-up with this is strong, like on a daily basis, you make some spiritual practices. What happens is your identity as the core strengthens, and that actually helps as the baseline for all the various roles that you play in this world at a functional level, right? So when you do that, then it is this middle ground is the right way of living in this world. We cannot just live at the functional level, because you may lose any day your profession or whatever, your role as a father, mother, son, whatever. Changes, those are changing. You cannot rely on it, right? It will lead to dilemmas. It is going to limit you in various ways. At the same time, you cannot become theoretical and impractical and live saying that I am soul and I cannot, I will not be acting responsibly in this world because I'm a soul, right? So we have to understand we are soul and play our role in a very responsible way in this world and strengthen our bond with God. That way our core is at the forefront of our various roles. You are doing various roles, but your core should also feel the identity as the soul at the same time. When you do that, then you play your role very well in this world, right? So what is the key lesson in this chapter? We are fundamentally spiritual in nature. We play various roles in this world, and these roles, we discussed in depth, various ways, and these roles are, they have limitations, and we have to be vigilant of our real identity, and to strengthen our the sense of real identity, we will take to spiritual practices that will help us strengthen our identity as the spiritual being and help us play our role in this world, in various roles, in a more effective way, right? Without going through the various turmoils that are limited when a person only functions at the functional level in this world, right? Is it clear? Any questions on this last slide? Does it all make sense, what we are discussing? I'm not going through the slokas. Once we understand these concepts well about our identity, and you can, this is like more like a thought exercise you can do at home on what are the roles that you strongly identify, where are your attachments, right? And how do you spiritualize those roles?
Prabhuji, one question, or more like a thought I have. So, if I'm understanding right, once we understand our fundamental identity, we'll be able to play all the roles on the physical level, and then not get too attached or too engrossed only on the physical identity level. Um,
Correct. Exactly.
in the fundamental level, as a soul, how do we understand our connection with Krishna? Because from what I'm understanding, we see ourselves as, oh, okay, I'm a dad, I'm a son, I work for this corporation. We take these physical roles for the fundamental identity to understand its true purpose. How do we identify that, or where do we relate that project?
Yes. So how do you realize yourself? Basically, you're at the fundamental level, you're a spiritual being, and we don't realize that with any, for example, a child is born, you'd be crying for milk, at the physical. Nobody realizes their spiritual identity by any physical means, or by just living in this world without any spiritual awakening. And how do you do that? How do you identify yourself with the soul? The only way is to engage in yoga, the practice of spirituality. Yoga means what? Connecting the soul with the supreme. And there are various paths. That's what Bhagavad Gita teaches in the various chapters. Through your actions, called karma yoga, through knowledge about God, that is jnana yoga, through engaging in loving service to Lord, that is called bhakti yoga. So in this way, when you engage in acquiring knowledge about the higher truth and engage in spiritual practices, you will slowly increase your identity as the spiritual core. And that naturally helps you play various roles in this world, as this, as a spiritual being, not as just a physical being in this world, right? So it's an evolution. It takes time, but over a period of time, we all evolve into a spiritual being as we engage in various spiritual practices while living in this world, right? It's a gradual thing, and with patience and sincere practice, we can increase our spiritual identity, and then we play our roles very well in this world, with that identity in the mind, right? Just like Arjuna, when he was in the first chapter, he had an emotional breakdown. He doesn't know what is the right action for him. But because he was only looking at his physical roles as a dynasty protector or as a kshatriya. But when he understood that, okay, I am not just, these two, I have a fundamental reality beyond all of this, and I should do the right thing. With that, when the fundamental became very clear, he was able to play his role. He was able to make a decision about his life very well, right? Whatever it is. So, in that way, when we develop our core strongly, then we can play our role in this world very well, because that base strength is going to be there. You know how to play the role well.
Haribol. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Any other question?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yeah, Hare Krishna.
Actually, I didn't understand the part when you said that when Arjuna understood his fundamental role, like he was not just associating with the physical part, that gave him strength to like find the right thing, and he did the right thing. I didn't understand that part. Could you please elaborate that?
Right. So we are in the very early beginning of this journey of Bhagavad Gita. So when Lord Krishna understood that Arjuna was tormented by indecision, unable to make a call, whether he came to fight, he had his chariot prepared, bow, and everything is ready, and he came to the center of the war field. But then when he saw his family members on the opposite side, he completely his perception changed, his way of seeing things. He does not desire to fight anymore. At that point, he was only identifying himself in these two roles, as initially as a kshatriya, secondarily as somebody who protects his kula dharma, or family dynasty.
Right.
So what Krishna took, Arjuna, he did not give a moral teaching at that level. So he elevated him, Arjuna, to the next level of identity as a fundamentally as a soul, as a spiritual being, which has no limits, which has no death, and ever happy. So that when Krishna gave the understanding of the soul, and how as a soul, what's his relationship with God. So in the next several chapters, all of that is going to be covered. So when Arjuna understood himself at that level, right, he was very clear on his purpose of life.
I see.
That became clear. Now he was able to play his role well in this world.
Right. Now it made sense. Yes.
Yeah. So we cannot solve a problem at the level of consciousness, of the problem. We have to raise our consciousness to the next level.
Right.
That is exactly what happened to Arjuna. So Krishna did not solve his problem at emotional level. He could have inspired him to fight by telling him, hey, look at all the atrocities committed by Duryodhana onto you.
Right.
Right? He didn't say that. He gave the knowledge of the next level.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you for
Thank you so much.
good questions. So both of you. Any other questions? Yeah. So I'll talk about an experiment done by a psychologist called Penfield. So Penfield was trying to identify the source of consciousness. That was his So he was trying to identify, his goal is source of consciousness, the identity of the self, I am. So where is this coming from? That was, he spent like all his research for about 30 to 40 years on this one field of identity. So he was able to, he was thinking maybe, brain is the most understood or, area where he thought maybe this identity is coming from. So he did various experiments. So there are, certain, so our brain, right? Our brain has various trigger points, right? And each of these trigger points have a functional role. For example, he asked a candidate for his experiment, raise your hand. He raised his hand, right? So then he said, I raised my hand. And then Penfield has this specific instruments, on his kept on his helmet, which has these, activators. When he activated certain areas of the brain, now without the intervention of the candidate or the experimental object, he was able to, using the activation of this brain part, he was able to raise the hand of the individual. And when the person was asked what happened now, he said, you raised my hand, I didn't raise my hand. So earlier he was saying, I raised my hand. Now the candidate said, you raised my hand. So in this way, various ways, various parts were controlled in the brain. So, but what happened was, through various experiments, he tried to explore the entire brain. And there was no place that says where there is this identity that can be activated. The I am was not activated anywhere. Means there is no sense of ownership, or the instigator coming from the brain itself. So no part of the brain is actually the is giving the ownership to the actions performed by the individual. So then his final conclusion of all the research is, the source of consciousness is outside our brain, or extra, peripheral to our brain. It's outside. So in this way, we can see that, the sense of identity is not actually, brain is just a physical encasement, and it manages all the, various, it has the nervous system to control the entire physical body. But the trigger for it, the activation is not within the brain. It is outside of this. So it is basically, as per Bhagavad Gita, the individual brain is seated in the place of heart, right? And this soul actually directs all the actions in the physical world, by the body. So that is Penfield's experiment. So the sense of identity does not come from anything that is within the physical brain. So that's the key point, right? Yeah. So the characteristics of fundamental identity we'll discuss in more detail in the next session. It's a whole topic. We only discussed that we play various roles in this world, right? but they don't really define who we are. And strongly, overly identifying them can lead to, problems in this world. It leads to, the three sets of problems that we discussed. We cannot just live identifying ourselves with just our fundamental identity as the soul. That's impractical. So we need to increase our identity with the soul, but at the same time use that to function in this world in playing various roles. So that is the balance we need to focus on, right? So that is the balance. This is the key lesson for today's session. So we'll continue this discussion. I would like each of you to, ponder over what we discussed about the various roles we play in this world. What are your attachments, and how you can strengthen your relationship, right? For spiritual development. So you have a stable, base on which you can act in this world, right? Yeah. So we discussed what is Chetana, what is soul. Yeah. Anything else?
Prabhuji, on last slide, you have that diagram, right? Can you again share about the consciousness or the soul? You mentioned that in the brain there is nothing of
Yes.
that. So that sits where? You were saying, sorry, I did not follow.
It's seated in the heart. Hridayeshu, Hridyas Arjuna Tishtati. In Bhagavad Gita, we'll read where Krishna says, the soul, along with, in fact, the Paramatma also stays in the heart of the living entity. Hridesha Arjuna Tishtati. So it's in the region of heart. So it's seated in the region of the heart means it decides to sit there. It can move around, by the way. For example, a person's heart is, replaced. How is the person going to be the same? If the heart is replaced, the soul may leave the heart, right? No, it's not like that. It is seated in the place of heart. When the heart being changed, the soul can move around to a different place temporarily and will come back to occupy the heart. Otherwise, the identity of the person changes, but it doesn't happen.
Okay, thank you, Prabhuji.
Yeah. Is it okay, or is it too theoretical? You want more examples, or how do you feel the session is for you? Any feedback? Anybody?
Thank you, Prabhuji, for first asking for the feedback. And I think the content is really good in understanding these abstract concepts, and you are bringing in examples too. So I think for me, it is a content I'm able to understand and follow.
Anybody else? I don't hear anyone else.
No, Prabhuji, it's actually good. So I think with the diagram and the examples, it's kind of comprehensible one. So yeah, thanks so much for that.
Okay, thank you. So it's 1:05. We can end the session. Would you like to, chant one round?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you. I'll stop recording.